do the official welcomes, and then we'll jump into the whiskies. Um, Very, very quick housekeeping. My name's Oliver. We're here for the virtual tasting of Whisky Jury tonight. Hopefully everyone read my email, which was, if you have 6 glasses, I highly recommend you pour them in right now and let them breathe. These whiskies are quite incredible, and I think they just do well with letting, especially some of those really old statements, just get the oxygen in and let them breathe. What else I need to cover? Obviously, don't drink and drive. There's some high ABV whiskies. Any questions or tasting notes from into the chat, we love to hear, and we'll get to them throughout. What else? The tasting order tonight, which let me quickly paste it into the chat. I'd love to introduce you to the sales manager from Whisky Jury, Jef Deckman. Welcome, Jef.
Hi, nice to meet you. I'm
We-
I'm audible to everybody as well.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Perfect, great. Very
And a
good.
little bit later on, Joeri's just in another meeting here. Who's the founder of Whisky Jury? He'll join us as well to say a quick hello. But I will officially let's just go through the tasting order. The 1997 Deanston 25-year-old. Pour it into your glass. We'll get tasting it in a second. Whiskey number 2 will be the 2011 Dailuaine 12-year-old. Whiskey number 3, the 1990 Speyside 33-year-old, followed by the 96 Nevis 26-year-old, the 2009 Caol 13-year-old, and we'll finish with the 1989 34-year-old Secret Islay, which I'm most excited about. No bias here, but yeah, tell us about this Deanston while we kick things off.
Yes, so hi everyone. Thanks for having me for this tasting. I've been looking forward to it. I mean, with this lineup, my job isn't really all that hard, you can imagine. Certainly when you get I get to cleanse my palate with a Deanston 97. I don't have anything else at hand. So yeah, I'm usually when I do these tastings, I'm you know, I not too big on the whole history of distilleries and all that sort of thing. I'm much more interested in flavor, and I'll try and talk a little bit about the perspective of what an independent bottler does, and what we're all about. But yeah, from we'll just dive into the first whiskey immediately. And Deanston is one of those distilleries we tend to describe as the waxy distillery. So there's quite a lot of like sort of beeswax or like a sort of candle-like character to it. And you can smell that immediately. It is very decadent. It's very rich. And that mouthfeel is gonna immediately, you're gonna immediately feel it when you taste it. It's just very coating, and that's always something very pleasant about Deanston. And certainly, like, take a tiny sip and make sure you can compare it to the Dailuaine, because these two distilleries tend to have that waxy profile, but in a very different way. And obviously, the age of this whiskey is very present. We like that old school style. I mean, both Joeri and I, we've been whiskey lovers for quite some time. We used to be friends before we even worked together, and we've had many, interesting nights around the table where we got out our rarest bottles. And when you dive into those things and you learn about the 60s, the 70s whiskeys, you tend not to forget that. You tend to try and find that profile in let's say more modern bottlings. And I think this Deanston hits that spot really well. It has that oxidative, like, old school fruit note. I mean, and the Whisky Jury is a little bit synonymous with fruitiness. I say, like, we try and find it in every bottling. It is very, very important. Yeah, I see apple orchard on the nose. Absolutely, it is pure, like, orchard fruit, but even like a nice pear note as well to me. Yeah, if this kicking off with a banger is right, it is. If this is the first whiskey of the night, it's gonna be a great evening. I mean, it's 11:30 here, but as it is for the Australians, the reputation of the Belgians precedes us in terms of, like, this is a very decent hour to start drinking for us.
And just some info about the bottle. So distilled in 97, bottled in 2023, obviously
Yes.
uncolored, natural non-chill filtered. It's 51.6% ABV and a total bottles of 257. Refill hogshead, cask strength, obviously, and this was exclusively bottled for the Antelope in Macau. So,
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So I've got the bottle here as well. I'll try and show it to you. I mean, it will be mirrored, but so this is like a line of labels that Yuri is, he used to be in marketing. He's a very visual guy and that sort of thing. He does these labels himself, or well, these were actually repainted. So they're old masters paintings that we had repainted with the glasses in there. So it's sort of like a little bit of our history of art presented on the label as well. And it's generally, been very well received by people like these type of labels. And yeah, absolutely. The Antelope is a very good partner of ours, and we were very happy to select this cask for them, and very glad we could do this profile. Generally in Europe, they were little bit disappointed that they couldn't get their hands on this Deanston because it was, as you can taste, it is pretty stellar. And yeah, I mean, I see some notes about a chewy mouthfeel. This is exactly my feeling. Like it is so rich, and I kind of love that about that whiskey. 51.6 cask strength is also sort of like, I think, is a sweet spot because it is very approachable still. Like certainly for if you're a whiskey lover, that it hits that sweet spot of not being watery or not being too thin, but also not being alcoholic or burning. So I think that's, if we have the opportunity of finding a cask around that strength, like between 49, 53, we'll tend to lean towards it.
I was just about to jump in. Mark's asked a couple questions. So first one's what's the history of the relationship with Antelope? You guys obviously do a lot of exclusive with them, and a follow-up question: is there a particular kind of cask or profile for the local Macau market, or is it you guys just choose good stuff that you would be happy to sell anywhere?
So our history with the Antelope is just he started as one of our first distributors, or like our first shops. We don't particularly have we have like a special distribution in that we tend to just have like one or two shops in every country. There's just not enough bottles to do like proper distribution to many shops because it'll just end up being one shop has one bottle, and that's a little ridiculous. But yeah, the Antelope has been with us almost from the start. We were very fortunate with them as a partner, and yeah, they have gotten a good amount of opportunities to do selections, or like let us do selections for them. For us, we do look at what's in demand in the market. Certainly the China market or the Asian market is less rum driven. Rum is a very important part of our portfolio. We've done a lot of independent rums, but China is definitely leans more towards cognac and whiskey, single malt whiskey. And certainly the Chinese market is more towards, or the Macau market, Hong Kong markets are more towards the high end stuff. So generally we'll try and do a little bit more like a 20-year-old or 20-plus-year-old whiskey for them. But also it's kind of difficult to get, certainly in today's market. I mean, the cask market is opening up a little bit, but generally, like certainly when this was bottled 2023, prices were really high. So every cask was a contest, because we're certainly not the only independent bottler looking for this type of quality. Yeah, the baking spices on this, like it's really, really beautiful.
Now I've got a few comments coming in. So Ian says definitely crumble notes in there. Michael, apple and cinnamon crumble, palate for me, a bit of pepper spice on the finish, coats the palate with the fruity flavors and the viscosity and chewy. It is so viscous, which I love about this whiskey. Shall we jump into the Dailuaine, or at least get people pouring it and nosing it? While you tell us a little bit, about the beginning. How did Joeri get started? Where are you guys located? what is the Whisky Jury?
So the Whiskey Jury is, I mean, from the name you might think that it is a whole bunch of guys getting together and tasting cask. It is, well, it was founded by Joeri, which is why the name is the Whiskey Jury. So it's sort of a hint to his name. But he was all by himself. He was a marketing guy. And he sort of, got a little bit sick of that world after, I think, probably 30 plus years of experience. And his love was, his hobby was single malt or like really high end spirits. And he got into it, bottling a Nevis 1995 was the very first bottling in 2019. And it was generally, he sold them in Belgium at the shops that he was a client at. So it's sort of like a very small start, a part-time thing. And his standards for quality are very, very high. I mean, and as you will be able to taste throughout the lineup. And I think it was a very good time to start a bottler, like to still start being an independent bottler, because we obviously had that COVID boom, and we were able to ride that wave a little bit, but also the commitment to quality is just something that I think tends to resonate with people quite well. We try and just have a reasonable price for a very high quality product, and that's just the mission. We're a little bit our own clients. I mean, we're whiskey lovers. We've been in whiskey shops more than we dare admit. And when we set a price or we select, it's just like, okay, if we walked into a store tomorrow and we tasted, at what price would we buy it, or would we buy it at all? And I think that's just something that makes us, that resonates quite well with our audience. So that's a little bit like how we came to be. And right now it's only a 2-people operation. I work part-time for the Whiskey Jury, so it's still very small. But I mean, I think we can be very proud of the impact we've had on the whiskey world. So we're based in Belgium, in sort of in between Antwerp and Brussels. It's quite a small town, Mechelen it's called. But and that's where we operate from. Right now it's from Joeri's home, but we are building offices, or like renovating offices. So we're going to be moving soon, and it's going to be exciting for us as well. So I'll get into the Dailuaine now, and I hope you can see some comparisons to the mouthfeel, that it is quite waxy as well, like that sort of that coating mouthfeel. But it's definitely, the orchard fruit is much fresher, so you don't get that oxidation from the age. But like, it is such a luscious whiskey on the nose immediately. It is also has kind of like a floral thing. I think gooseberry is a very good note. It has some kind of like, I don't know whether some of you are wine lovers, but it has some of a Sauvignon Blanc type of vibe to it, which is some of my favorite white wine.
I'm loving these comments that are coming in. They're doing our tasting notes for us. So
oh yeah, I pretty much, I could just, this is great. You seem all like very into whiskey, and the tasting notes are very high quality, certainly for the standards. I mean, I've done more tastings than I can count. This is a good crowd for sure, from what I can read.
Everyone here loves their IBs, first of all, and we're such a remote country. It's Sydney to Perth is the same as East Coast to West Coast in the States. Like, it's such a big country, and there's very little in between. But yeah, whilst we do have a few good, bars and bottle shops in sort of the bigger cities, virtuals is still a great way to just stay connected, open a bottle, share it with some mates, and a lot of these regulars, they come every single week. We've been doing it one at least since 2020. So
wow.
Yeah, they're all seasoned, virtual tasting experts here, and we keep it pretty simple. It's just drink the whiskey, tell us if you like it or not. And then we've had some pretty funny tasting notes in the past. So we always we love our puns, our dad jokes. But yeah, just reading a few out. So that apricots, peaches on the nose, all those stone fruits, the oily texture. Honeysuckle and honeydew has been mentioned a couple of times. I would never guess this Dailuaine is only 12 years old. I was going to say the same thing. It is super bright, but I couldn't guess the age for the life of me. If you told me it was
Absolutely.
20 years old, I would believe you.
Yeah, I'm a huge Dailuaine lover. I think it's one of the underrated distilleries. Like I've really had a few Dailuaines that I would certainly put on par with a good Clynelish. The only issue is like the availability on the market is quite limited because it's owned by Diageo, so most of it is, goes down to Johnny Walker or other blends. Um, and the casks that are available generally aren't that old. And certainly like that waxiness is always kind of present, but to get that really bright fruit note, this was a very lucky shot. I think we often have to buy casks blind. So we were quite lucky with this one. I think it's very exceptional for 13 years old or 12 years old. I'll show the label as well. So this is it started with a bottling that we did for Tastu, which is the store I used to work at. It's Belgium's biggest whiskey shop. It's a huge place, like 3,000 whiskeys. It's a massive wall, like a little bit of a paradise for the whiskey lover. And I selected with Joeri in 1998 Ben Nevis, and he did sort of like a version of the bar painting by Edward Hopper, and that became like a range of cool scenes from like a more high-end restaurant bar kind of atmosphere with the suits, and it has been well received as well. I think I really like the visual aspect, and I think certainly Joeri, he's going to show up a little bit later, and he can certainly give his vision on this. But I think the most important part is that a whiskey bottle tends to be part of the interior of a person's home. So we care a lot about, the way that feels, when you have that bottle on the shelf, and that you kind of are drawn to it as well. Yeah, I totally agree. I'd never guessed this is but 12 years old. I think it's good that we put it a little bit later, like we had a cleanser and a first dram, because it is 59 degrees alcohol. So it can be a little bit punchy as a first whiskey, and then you might notice that it's not as old as maybe some of the next few will taste. But it's certainly for the price, it was a really, really good and well received whiskey, and I was very happy with it. It might be one of my favorites. I mean, I know the lineup is pretty crazy, but still, I wouldn't discount it as one of my favorites just because it's so surprising and just because it's so good for from a price quality standpoint.
As everyone knows, we do the poll at the end. It's going to be so tricky voting for your top two whiskeys today. Maybe we need to do top three, but 204 bottles in this outturn, and it's
Yes.
first fill bourbon cask, obviously 59%. So it's a big boy.
Yeah, it is. We do favor bourbon casks. We only ever do bourbon and sherry. Wine casks we steer away from. There's just too much dirty stuff out there, too much low quality stuff. It is not worth our efforts. For that maybe one rare occasion where it is exceptional, you'll have to taste hundreds and hundreds of shitty casks. Which already I think we taste. Yeah, I don't know what the ratio would be, but it would be close to 50 samples per each one that we select. So it is quite a rigorous selection that we have to do. So there's a lot of bourbon casks in there because generally you get that fruitiness, and it's just a very clean, like recognizable old school flavor profile. But the next one we'll dive into, it's a refill sherry cask, so it'd be interesting to have that contrast, and also interesting to because it's actually quite a bit more delicate than the Dailuaine maybe is. It's definitely more complex. So I'd be interested to see what you guys think after that one. So it's a Secret Speyside 33-year-old. I guess maybe most of you have poured it already. I'm just gonna quickly do mine. It is a Glenfarclas. I mean, the label doesn't really hide it that well with the font. Like it is very family cask. Like we get away with it with doing it that way.
There will be a
It
quiz
is.
at the end to ask everyone what are the various secrets. Pause. There's a secret Isla coming up as well at the end. So just
I
reading
mean,
some of these.
I'll tell all of them. I'll reveal all of them. We know most of our secrets. We know what it is. So all right.
Just a couple comments here. So 2 out of 2
Okay.
crackers. Please keep this trend going. It doesn't drink like 59% either. Comparing the Deanston and Dailuaine, the colors are so light. As for the texture, it's like a clean leach, that waxiness here that you're getting. What else? We are the geekiest of the whiskey geeks. Absolutely. I'm struggling to keep up with all these comments. I could spend the night nosing just these 2 whiskeys. So there we go. Love this
Yeah, that's.
feedback.
I mean,
So
yeah, I'm very happy with it all. It's like, I really like it when when you get an engaged crowd. It's very fun, and I can see like people drawing the comparisons with the Klein leashes as well. Those are definitely for me the big three waxy distilleries. Klein leash is obviously the most famous one, and we've been hunting Klein leash casks, but they're just so expensive. It is ridiculous. Like we couldn't bottle one in good conscience and put it on the shelves at those prices. So for us, it's a little bit like we'd never buy them ourselves at that price, so we'll never bottle it. But yeah.
I have a question for you before we jump into this Glenfarclas. What's
sure.
sort of your bottling process? Because you guys are based in Belgium. I imagine you get some samples sent out. Then the bottling's done in Scotland, and you need to obviously pick a label. Like is there a flavor profile or something you go for? You just mentioned there's 2 particular casks that you always predominantly work with. Like, what is your bottling ethos as Whisky Jury, I guess?
So yeah, we have quite a. I mean, there's very little buying direct from distilleries. I know it's a little bit that romantic idea, but unfortunately, that's just not the way things work. There's a lot of brokers and different partners, and there's a lot of places where you can find casks. We buy casks from private owners. We buy casks from brokers from different partners. So there's not really like a single point we go to. It's a very dynamic world, and you need to be very quick. Sometimes you get an email with like an opportunity, and 5 minutes later, all casks are gone. So it can be quite intense sometimes. And yeah, apart from that, I think you got a pretty good. So we work from Belgium, so that means either we buy a cask blindly and then get a sample sent out, or if we're lucky, we get samples sent out and we can actually taste before we select. And then we tend to make the label, so you get it regauged, bottled, then you make the label because you'll have the ABVs and all the correct amount of numbers, and then you get that sent out, bottled in Scotland. Because to keep it, to keep your designation of origin, you do have to do all of that. We have bottled a Lagavulin last year, which was came to Europe as a 3-year-old spirit, and then lost the designation of origin. So we had to bottle it as a blended malt, origin Europe. But it was so good, and it was like sitting on the shelf at €50 in Belgium, a cask strength, or a high ABV 5-year-old sherry Lagavulin. It was sold out in pretty much a day. So that was a fun project as well. So we tend not to care too much about the designation, but obviously people kind of look for that single malt Scotch or those Irish whiskies a little bit more than they do maybe other stuff. So apart from that, in terms of the process, it seems quite simple when you put it that way. There is a lot of hassle that comes with this. It takes sometimes months. Taking a sample from our own casks, they'll charge you like with shipping costs, like express shipping costs. may take us like 200 pounds just to get a sample of our own cask. So, you have to really be quite careful about how you go about things. It's, customs, all that stuff. It sometimes takes ages. We had an incident a few, like I think last release, where we had transported an empty barrel with our bottles from Scotland to Belgium, and our national food safety organization needed to clear that cask. I think it took a month before there was any movement in that shipment, so the whole shipment was blocked. And then we had to hire transport to drive that cask to food safety in Belgium for them to then just put a stamp on it, drive it back to customs, and then it could be released. It was a nightmare, like, honestly. So you get a lot of that stuff, which is all that behind the scenes stuff that people don't get to see. It's all very romantic image, just sitting around tasting whiskeys, bottling them, and sending them to all over the world. But it is, it is a proper job sometimes as well.
I was just going to say,
but a fun one.
Australians are probably most aligned with how terrible customs is with our local one here. So we feel your pain.
All right. So yeah, if anyone has any more question on that sort of stuff, I'd be happy to answer as much as I can, without revealing too many of our trade secrets, because obviously it's like the relationships that you have to build to get the quality casks are, it takes quite a long time. So we tend to, not reveal everything as well.
Tell us about this Glenfarclas, so 33-year-old refill sherry at 51.2%.
Yeah, so I think it's the fourth Glenfarclas that we've done now. I think release 24 was the very first. It was the same vintage, 1990. We've done 1990, 1991. Yeah, I think they're just very lucky shots where we were able to find these. They're refill sherries, and they're just so old school in that respect. They're not like super sherry driven. You'll get that nuttiness and you get a little bit of the red fruits, but it's generally very well balanced. And you get that tea notes, like the leather, the polished wood, the old furniture sort of style, and that's something that only really develops in a whiskey, I'd say 28 years plus, like from my experience. Like the really old school, like old woody leathery notes, they take quite a while, and also quite like lazy casks, which is like a very interesting perspective on like current maturation. Is like the quality of casks technically is much higher than it used to be. You used to get quite lazy wood, and it would take quite a while for whiskey to get interesting. But if you have that time and you have that 30 years or 35 years in the lazy cask, it is just something completely different that is very difficult to achieve with like the more active wood that you tend to get when you get bourbon casks these days. So that's quite an interesting perspective on how whiskey flavor profiles are evolving. But this is definitely, to me, yeah, it is. I think this is my favorite of the Speysides we've done. There is some discussion between the first one and this one, but I see strawberry ice cream. Okay. Yeah, I see the creaminess as well, for sure. That's just bloody delicious. That every time I taste that whiskey, I'm just blown away by how good it really is. You could find something of every flavor. There's orchard fruits, but there's like even like some slight tropicalness in there. There is that red fruit. There's the tea. There's the leather. There's so much going on in this whiskey, and it is so delicately balanced. And for 33 years old, and certainly Glenfarclas tends to have like a slightly bitter quality to it. Certainly at higher age, to me, it has very little of that. It has a nice bitterness, but a good one. It's not drying. There's no tannins of any kind. I think it is yeah, very close to perfection. In my opinion, like this wasn't a hard decision when you get this in front of you, and the price is decent. It is an instant go. Unfortunately,
That's
only 159 bottles. I'm very happy you were able to get one for the tasting. Yeah.
I'm going to give a special shout out to our sort of partner in crime, Raf, who he handles a lot of the whiskey jury side of things in Asia, and he's supplied a lot of the stock for tonight's tasting. So big shout out to Raf for opening up his private sort of selection, and then good time to announce we officially are taking over the distribution of Whisky Jury in Australia. So the first shipment's on the way. We figured whilst we're waiting, it takes a while to get whiskey from that side of the world over here. Let's kick off with an absolute, epic tasting of top shelf proportions, and that's how this whole lineup came about. Raph said, "I've got some cool stuff," and yeah, we jumped in, and yeah, we got some very very interesting whiskies that we could not say no to, and there's no excuse like saying, "Hey, let's open a 33-year-old Glenfarclas like as IBs." You just never see them, so it was a no-brainer, right?
For sure. Yeah. Well, thanks, Raf, for supplying some of these great whiskeys for sure. I'm very happy. I can do tasting of this proportion for you guys. Certainly to kick things off, we're very happy. We get to work with the whiskey list. We had an important in Australia a while ago, but the relationship was getting quite difficult. So we're very happy that we can change, and certainly now seeing the community behind it, I think we made a very good decision of working with you guys. And yeah, we are. I'll do a little bit of a teaser tonight by the end of it of what's coming your way. It'll take some time, so it's I think the first release that'll hit the Australian market will be our 6th anniversary. So there will be absolute bangers in there for sure. I know it's more of a whiskey market these days. I mean, we're definitely gonna increase the amount of whiskeys we do because the gas market is opening up. Rum and French spirits have become quite important to us as well. But to be honest, I would urge you guys to try like certainly some of the French spirit. Like we have an Armagnac coming. We have some cognacs that are just so gorgeous. If you like old spirits, the ages that you get on there, like our first Armagnac is gonna be like close to 50 years old, and it'll be below 200 euros in Europe. So, and to be honest, like all spirits, sort of kind of converge to similar notes, certainly at that age. So you'll definitely get a lot of whiskey like notes in there. So if you're willing to discover that sort of stuff, I would urge you to take a look into that, or ask Oliver or the guys whether they're able to get it. I'm sure we'll be able to work something out. But
Yeah,
I'll do some slight teasers at the end of what's to come.
great, appreciate it. Yeah, we've mentioned to Joeri and Jef that the Australian sort of premium other sort of dark spirits, your rums, your cognacs, armagnacs, it's growing. It's still very small in comparison to whiskey. So, but look, if there's demand in this room and people want to get it, then let us know and we'll start bringing it in. We've done a couple armagnacs with a few different bottlers over time, but I just wanted to say this. I've had a lot of family casks of the original bottlings of Glenfarclas. So over oaked for me personally. So many of them, they're more
For sure.
misses than hits. And I don't mind a good sherry dram, but just for the price to value comparison. But this, on the other hand, just trying it, this strawberries and creams. It's light, it's fresh, it's juicy. Yeah, this is why I love independent bottlers. They just get access to some of the most unique flavors that you just don't expect from like what an OB distillery core range. They have their methodology, their flavor notes, and we get to try things outside of that. This is one of my favorite things about IBs.
For sure, and I agree with you on the family cast. I'm technically not a huge Glenfarclas fan. It's certainly not in my top 10 favorite distilleries. But when it's this sort of thing, yeah, I mean, it it'd be very difficult not to love this. And I also I do have the confidence to say, like, if this would be a family cask, it'd certainly be one where that would get talked about quite a lot. So yeah, it's pretty great. I'm happy to see the enthusiasm for our brand. I'd love to know I'm how, you know, it's sometimes very strange to me, like how people know about us at the other side of the world, how that gets, you know, how that came about. So but it's just, you know, it's lovely that you see that when you know, try and just, you know, push quality, um and you know, keep doing what you think is right, that eventually enough people will have heard about you that you're doing a virtual tasting in Australia. So that's pretty great. Uh, I
I,
think
I find
that's
I find a lot of Aussies, because there isn't much happening kind of in the whiskey side of things here, that we're watching, you know, the socials in Europe, in Scotland, in the States, in Asia, and when something pops up, whether it's a review from, you know, Whiskey Fun with Serge, or any of the other sort of reviewers, or even just you guys announcing something on Facebook, there's sometimes more likes from Aussie consumers than there is local likes. And I've seen that with a few different IBs now, and it's just we're just hungry to have really good quality whiskey here. That's, you know, the demand is here. We just need to get some good stuff. Which, as we're tasting here, we're very happy with Whisky Jury so far.
yeah, I think I mean, I'm very happy with Whiskey Jury when tasting this sort of stuff as well. It's
Shall
not a
we
hard job defending this.
shall we
Move
jump
on to the
to
fourth
whiskey? Yeah, the Ben Nevis, which is a
for sure.
96. We have a friend of ours, Alex. I'm going to give him a little shout out. He's starting to create a bit of a shit stirring. He's claiming that all 97 Ben Nevises are the superior vintage. I don't know why. I'll leave that up to Alex to explain if he's in the call, or he will jump in later. But yeah, 96 is everyone. This is the supreme vintage, right?
Yes, absolutely. But it is, I mean, we've got an interesting one because generally the 96s, and I mean, by now we have tasted so many that we even know which cask numbers tend to give what type of like certain profile. So certainly the cask number starting with 13, and anything in the 1300s is got to be that extreme like tropical fruit notes. I mean, some of our most famous bottles like the Pilot or the very first two Ben Nevis 96s we've done are in those cask numbers. This one is actually, I think, probably the most unique 96 that we've done, in that it is much closer to what I'd say is a classic Ben Nevis profile. It has that lactic quality. It has some of that kind of dirtiness that I mean, I know and love from Ben Nevis, but 96 is actually usually quite un-Ben Nevis-like, in that it is very delicate, very fruity, very tropical, you know, very pungent. And so in that respect, this one is a little bit of an outlier for what we have tended to select, but it's just like the dirtiness was so well integrated, that lactic quality, and there's still, you know, very nice fruit on there, and the lemon on there, and the meringue. And I mean, it is very, even at 46.8, it can easily, from an aromatic standpoint, it stands up to, you know, the other whiskeys that we've poured tonight. No doubt about it, I think. But it is very interesting. I mean, there is 95s that are very fruity as well. But apart from that, it seems that there's, you know, that we'll have to wait for, I think, 2010, 2012. There's certainly a lot of potential for finding that tropical character again. But we have no idea why this particular, you know, thing, why this has happened. Like, is it fermentation? Is it certain, you know, certain different distillation that they have done? We have no idea. I see, like, the Whiskey Jury willing to officially claim credit for the 1996 Ben Nevis boom? Um, uh, I mean, from as a whiskey lover myself, me and few people here were already a little aware of like 1995, 1996 Ben Nevises, but certainly, I mean, I think if the Whiskey Jury is if you talk about the Whiskey Jury, Ben Nevis is going to be name dropped at some point. It is something we're very known for, and we love it. It is certainly if you look at our 6th anniversary selection, you might find that there is once again a Ben Nevis in there, and that is much more that fruity side again to compare to this one. But it is it is a really beautiful Ben Nevis example of what Ben Nevis can be.
I love some of these tasting notes. So Patrick says medicinal note for Ben Nevis.
Absolutely.
But the medicine that makes you feel all cozy on the inside, like ketamine. I heard it from a friend. What else? I can smell this one wafting up from the glass in my hands on my lap. Absolutely amazing. The nose is so inviting. Definitely agree there. And Michael says, opens like a polite handshake from a croissant. Then suddenly there's tropical fruit.
Yeah. So yeah. I mean, it is just. I think it's a testament to the quality of the vintage that you get. A lineup like this, and that you get a cask that is technically quite low proof at cask strength 46.8, and that it is just it jumps out of the glass. It is it really lives up to its name, I think.
All I can say for everyone on this virtual tasting, the next time Whiskey Jury bottles a Ben Nevis, run, like sprint. Don't walk. Don't wait for an email to come from Chris. Like just bombard him with requests. Like it's these Nevises. I was lucky enough to get your first Nevis that you ever did to try it, and I've tried a few over the years that they're all sublime. Like this again, it's dirtier than the other styles, but it's so Moorish. I love it.
Yeah. Oh, I see someone has a 96 from the Antelope incoming. Lucky man. As you're certainly gonna be very, very happy with that. So but yeah, we've been fortunate with the loyalty that people have shown towards our brand. I think in all whiskeys, we haven't had a lot of difficulty selling them out, and it's just a testament to people's passion, and I think our commitment to doing what's right in our in our view, and just bottle what we love. And I think I feel like I do quite well in this group of people. Like I'm very similar to you guys. My enthusiasm for whiskey and Yuri is just the same. So I think that's just the fun thing about it. It's a great community to work in. And yeah, those Ben Nevises, it is a matter of minutes sometimes for shops in how quickly they sell out. And like even in Belgium, they don't even hit the shelves anymore. Everything is sold out before it releases. And yeah, that is. I wish we could do more of this, like opening bottles at tastings, but we also are fortunate enough that we kind of don't need to, because people will buy it so long as we keep the quality coming. But every cask is a true battle. Okay. Shall we get into the peaty stuff? Or are we? Yeah. There we go.
Yeah, let's do it.
I need another glass because I'm not willing to pour these out. Let me just.
Well, Jeff's pouring it. So this is a bit of a. I'll show the label because it did my head in for a second when I was writing up. I misspelt it. But it's a 2009 bottling of Caol, bottled in 2022. All the regular stuff, no color added, non-chill filtered, etc. What does it say? Real refill hogshead, 303 bottles. ABV is 55.8. And this is an exclusive bottling for China. And I don't know if you can see, but it's I've never seen that spelling before.
We weren't allowed to use the name, so we did some juggling.
It's very cool. I like it when IBs play around with it and little Easter eggs and stuff like that in there.
Yeah, I'll show you. I wasn't sure again which one we selected for the tasting, but I've got there was a Europe exclusive and an Asia exclusive. So you got these two together. They're sister casks of each other, I think, and they're very close in terms of flavor profile. But this is absolutely classic Caol. It is nice and ashy. There's actually a good like farmy quality to it. I find this I'd like to describe it as sheep's wool a little bit, like I don't know, certainly farmy, like dried hay and grassiness, and then that ashy smoke, a lot of mineral quality, like wet stone, a little bit flinty. Definitely a jump from the previous things we've tasted, like a good contrast, I think. Yeah, that farmy quality is something that we really like in peated whiskey. It's probably like the only, or like one of the only whiskey profiles that will definitely jump towards that. It's not very fruity, because usually we lean towards that fruity side to have that sweetness. And this is a more drier style of whiskey that we absolutely love.
Not to just pause on the Caol, but I had a really interesting question from Mark here. He's asking, from your opinion, what is the next whiskey? I imagine from any distillery, any vintage that is going to be like the next 96 Nevis. Like, what is people should be jumping on now before it gets, too much in demand?
From a whiskey perspective, I haven't really spotted that thing that is like that quality. I've tasted some things from Inchmurren or like Loch Lomond distillery that I think are exceptional, but there's just not enough casks to, start a hype, I think. I've tasted it recently, a 2003 Inchmurren that was just like, it was like an old 80, like end of 80, like 89 to 91 coolie, like super fruit bomb type of thing. And it blew my mind. So like if we would be able to find more casks of that stuff, I'm sure it will be, it would be insanity. But the thing is, that it's very difficult there's very little vintages and distillery profiles that are that widely available, or that there's enough of to create that hype. And I mean, it's not easy to find Ben Nevis 1996 cask, but there's enough to build up the hype around it. In rum, it's definitely TDL, the 2003, 2002 type of things. It is exceptionally fruity. It is ridiculous, like the quality of that stuff. And you see that in Europe right now. So if you're looking to get into rum, and you're able to get some TDL from the whiskey list, jump at the opportunity. It is the same hype as what we now experience in Ben Nevis. We get through those TDLs. It is sold out immediately. People go crazy for that stuff. It is peaches, it is pineapple, it is mango, it is like saffron. It is a really crazy profile. But TDL is Trinidad Distillers Limited. It is so it's Trinidad rum. So sorry if I wasn't unclear on that. But burnt beer cartons feels like I don't know whether I haven't burned a lot of beer cartons, but maybe that might be a traditional Australian thing.
Yeah, it's an Aussie tasting note.
Yeah, Aussie tasting note for sure.
You can put that on the future Caol label, but
Yeah,
The
for sure.
smoke kicks the door in, starts rearranging the furniture, and still telling an inappropriate story to me. Again, not a huge smoke lover, but I like this. So I like when peat
Cool.
whiskey converts the non-peat lovers. So
I think I'm definitely lean towards the fruitier, bourbon, like unpeated bourbon casks in general. But yeah, this one is you know, it is also more like really my cup of tea as well. Maybe in the future we can do a bottling for the whiskey lister for Australia where we put some Aussie tasting notes on there. That'd be a fun project for sure.
absolutely,
I feel
we
I
love doing that.
yeah, I am surprised how little barbecue references I'm getting from the tasting notes right now, but definitely some good. Yeah, I also forget. It's probably one of the warmest days that has been in Belgium this year. It's going to be 33 degrees Celsius out, so that is for Belgian standards extremely hot. But you guys are in winter there, so this is probably a very good dram for you guys right now. Rub it in, yeah. For that one day a year that Belgium has better weather than Australia. Yeah, I'm absolutely gonna rub it in. Sorry.
Yeah, our weather is pretty average at the moment, so we'll let you have it.
Yeah, for sure.
Here we go. We got our lamb burnt until it's black, like a regular Australia day. There we go. There's a tasting barbecue reference.
Great. Thanks. Thanks for taking that one for the team. All right. And yeah, I think we can slowly move into the final whiskey. We'll be hitting just about an hour, and then I'll get Joeri in, and you can bombard him with questions. I'll try and answer as much as we can. Um, and it is true that like 5 years ago, IB Kalila was everywhere, and now for some reason there's nothing available on the market anymore. Like in terms of casks, we don't see any Kalila anymore. So that's that's quite an interesting development as well. So
Before you tell
final
us
whiskey.
what this whiskey is, any guesses from the audience what it is? If you can tell just from nosing it or tasting it. Didn't Diageo announced or something a few years ago they're not releasing any more casks from Caol? I remember reading some headline or something like that.
It may have something to do with it, but to be honest, I think throughout the years there's been enough white spirit bought by brokers and different players within the industry that there should be more available, I guess. But it is very difficult to really know. I'm very curious to see whether people have done their homework and know what this is. You can definitely, there's definitely references on the label, but I'm very curious to see what people can come up with. Poor Zelen, if only. So Escake is not a distillery. Escake is a brand by Elixir Distillers, and it is generally Kalila, but there's also Puna and Lafroig in there, but it's always single malt.
It's got to be one of the L's, right?
I see Travis saying it's one of the favorite vintages of this distillery around this time, and he is bang on the money. It is a Lafroig. But to me, I would have to say it is not particularly the most traditional Lafroig because I mean there is medicinal notes in that, but it's not that extreme wet band-aid, iodine type of salty, brutal um sort of whiskey, it is much more delicate, balanced. It is so. Michael K is definitely going at it with the tasting notes.
All right, let me read it out. So just hear me out. There's a mermaid wringing seawater out of her hair, smelling faintly of mango and diesel. Good combo. A wet dog trots after her, carrying a small net of scallops, looking. Too many comments coming in. Looking equally unrepentant. No explanation for any of this, and frankly, please don't press the matter because I'm not entirely sure whether I've been rescued, seduced, or enlisted in maritime militia.
Someone applying for a copywriting job at the Whisky Jury, I think.
That's very cool.
But so this particular bottle was so I'll go over the details. Yeah, the 51%, 248 bottles worldwide, cask strength for and it is a refill bourbon cask. So classic Whisky Jury stuff, classic ABVs and that sort of thing. It is our 5th anniversary bottle. We've done 3 years in a row. We've done Lafroig's. So for this year there won't be Lafroig for the 6th anniversary. But I if you get the opportunity, which might not be easy to achieve, try and get your hands on one of the 1990s that we've done. And if you ever get to compare it to the 89s, it is very, very different. The 89s are just so much more delicate. Doesn't mean that they're necessarily better, but to me they are. Like, for my personal taste, I really like that balance and that complexity. And the contrast with the Caol Ila is nice. So you get the Caol Ila is very straightforward, that ashiness, and that it doesn't it is just very straightforward, and this is much more elegant and sophisticated, I think, if I had to describe it. Seriously, like God put his finger in my mouth. I wish I knew what that feels like, but if it feels like this, I'm inclined to let him.
I warned you would get very strange tasting notes. I didn't know which direction we are going to go in tonight, but there we have it.
Mermaid smelling of mangoes and God's finger. Yeah.
It's a PG rated tasting, Noel. Come on. Travis asked a good question. Oh no, it's a statement. The other 89-year release with the frog on it is spectacular as well. There you go. So
that is true. Yeah, I mean, I know it's a little bit blowing smoke up my own ass, but it is very, very, very gorgeous, that frog. I think it's also one of the best reviewed whiskies that the Whisky Jury has done. If you look at Whiskey Fun and Whiskey Notes, but I think this is on par. I haven't tasted them side by side, or maybe I have at some point, but it's definitely, they're very, very close. The profile is very similar. You get that lemoniness as well, like the delicate lemon and the zest, and then exactly, like that slight mango, that slight tropical note that is just very difficult to achieve in Lafroig. I think if you know the old 30 years, like the first 30-year-old Lafroigs and even the 40-year-old Lafroigs, they have this type of character. But obviously in terms of price, they're pretty crazy right now.
What I found is a lot of the OB Lafroigs, like the 20-year-olds, the 25s, there's just the peat has completely disappeared even at 25 years old, and I can find them a bit too weak, a bit too flat. But at 34 and at this ABV, it's still got a peatiness to the body. It's holding its own. It hasn't disappeared. Like you pay a lot of money for a 25-year-old OB Lafroig here, and it can be disappointing sometimes when you want the body of a Lafroig, that classic peat note to come through, and it's not there. And for this to have it here at 34 is spectacular.
For sure. I think yeah, I'm not opposed to the peat smoke slowly disappearing. I think it's one of the coolest qualities of old Islay whiskey, that you get so much of the delicate nuance of a distillate shining throughout time when you get to 30 years, 35 years, and the peat smoke becomes more like integrated within. It's not on the like it's not in front anymore. It's just like integrated within the whiskey. That is when you get this sort of stuff. And I think, my absolute favorite whiskey of all time is the 60s Bowmore stuff. And I think it's a perfect example of, the peat smoke is almost it is present, but it's like a faint whisper throughout the fruitiness of the whiskey. So yeah, absolutely. I'd see Michael has, it's like a polite nod in a way. It's not aggressive at all. It is, I think it is the perfect peat whiskey for non-peat whiskey drinkers because it's just so gentle, and without losing the distillery's identity. So yeah, I think quite an enjoyable lineup with good contrasted there. Certainly well selected from you guys. It was a very fun one to guide you through, and certainly fun for me to retaste some of them and retaste them in this order. Gives me gives me new perspective on things.
I might run the poll. As I mentioned before, a lot of these whiskies are kind of one of a kinds. We don't have much to sell tonight. I shared the link under Glenn's comment before. We only got 2 in stock. If there's anything you absolutely want, you can always email Chris or I, and we'll do our best to try and find it. I will launch the poll. Joeri, you and I can see this whilst everyone's sort of voting. We'll do a drum roll at the end. Is Joeri around to join us for a few minutes?
So I'm gonna take my earbuds out. The audio should switch, and I'll get Joeri. He'll come sit with us. If you have any questions, you can already type them in the chat whilst voting, and I'm sure he'll be happy to answer as much as possible.
Whilst you guys are voting, so Chris and I, we wanted to do more IB bottlings under the whiskey list, and I lost count. It was maybe 24 samples where we would order it. We even paid deposits sometimes. By the time the sample landed in Australia for us to try, it was sold already, usually to the Whisky Jury or any other good IB. So we've made a conscious decision to just focus working with really good IBs like Whisky Jury. And then they can get access to these casks. We'll get obviously our yearly and quarterly allocations or sooner. We want to do exclusive bottlings for Australia, as Jeff hinted as well. So all the regular stuff you guys love. But yeah, I just wanted to kind of give that context. It's very hard to be an IB in Australia. So and tough, I imagine, in Belgium as well, competing in sort of the demand in Scotland and the UK. But as shall we jump into the results before we jump into some questions? Can you guys hear us still?
Yeah, we can hear you.
Yeah, cool.
Hello, everybody.
Meet Joeri, the founder and owner of the Whisky Jury.
Thanks for joining the tasting. You were in good hands with Jeff. He was the former manager of the biggest and the most beautiful whiskey shop in Belgium. So I'm pretty sure he knows his stuff. So I hope you enjoyed it. And I'm drinking something much better than you guys. Look. Just kidding. Yeah, if there are any questions, or I can look them up in the chat, or please ask.
Yeah, we'll get to it. When my first question, now that you've just name dropped Port Ellen, when is Whisky Jury doing a Port Ellen?
Yeah, good question. When I win the lottery, probably. Yeah, there will be probably a few million pounds for a cask, and then and probably some Asian person will buy it or so. But I would love to, on the other hand, or a Brora.
Yeah.
I would even prefer a Brora, I think, above a Port Ellen.
Yeah, very cool. All right,
Yeah.
we've been doing a bit of a poll, so I might share the results. The question, we normally ask for the top two, but everyone was saying, can we vote for the top three? Because the lineup tonight was quite spectacular. So I will end the poll and insert a drum roll here for our recording later. And the winner is the Ben Nevis, followed
Cool.
by the Secret Isla, the 89 Lefroy, tied with the Glenfarclas and the Dailuaine. That's very cool. And Deanston and then Caol. So we obviously these skewed results are just as one question, but voting for the top three. So maybe if people want to chuck into their comments as well, maybe what their top three preferences were. But it sounds like Ben Nevis definitely came out in front, and we were discussing there was a comment earlier, Joeri, that Whisky Jury is kind of, at least in our minds, our hearts and minds, is one of the reasons why 96 Nevis is so popular as a vintage. You guys have bottled some incredible 96s in the past.
Yeah, that's nice to hear. Yeah, thanks a lot. And it's a bit honestly by coincidence that I became a Ben Nevis fan. You know, it was 6 years ago, 2019, when I sampled a lot of stuff from Scotland. It was just the first good sample that I had in my hands after all the crappy ones that were sent to me, you know, and it happened to be a Ben Nevis. It was a 1995, also very fruity. But since then I was, and it wasn't sexy. So 6 years ago, Ben Nevis was not so sexy and not so expensive. Now, if I find a good cask, I have to pay three times more, you know, not just 30% or so, three times more. So it's for partially also my own fault, probably that they became too expensive now. So maybe I shouldn't have done so many of them, but yeah, it's a bit by coincidence, but I still love it a lot, and it's getting harder and harder, obviously, because a lot more people are looking for those casks compared to 6 years ago. But luckily, sometimes people seem to find us, also private persons, you know, because they hear from here and there that we're such Ben Nevis fans. So sometimes we get contacted directly, and of course that is also very nice. And in a few occasions, we even made a label together with the family. You know, there was one family who inherited a cask, a lovely 1996 casks from their father, from their late father, and together with the family, we chose a lovely picture of the dad and we put it on the label as a sort of a honor to honor him, as a tribute. I also think it's a good example of, for me, that a cask has a story. You know, it's not just liquid in some wood, but sometimes it has been in families for decades, and I love to bring out that story. It's something you never really see, and I think it brings an emotional aspect to the business, I think, and I love to do that.
We've got some questions coming in. So Travis asks, can you explain the theme behind the suits on the label, or I guess your theming in general, with some of your different labels?
That's a good question, and not so easy to answer, because it's partly due to the fact that I don't have a lot of patience. So sometimes when I look at my labels, I want to do something different. You know, I start to change too fast. It's just because it's a passion of mine. As I think Chef explained, that I have a background in advertising and graphic design, and also it's really a passion of mine. I think it's also important because, you know, when you have a bottle in your closet, I see with some people's bottles behind them, it becomes part of your interior. So it's positive that you can, yeah, that it's something nice to look at, not just one or other label, but it's something that you really think is a beautiful piece of design to put in your house, you know. And about the suits, well, I think I chose some suits because it's an anniversary bottling, and I think it was nice to put some suits on the label as a special occasion, like you wear a suit for a special occasion.
I think the first suit was the Tostu 98, the old
Yeah.
bottling. Yeah, it's like, yeah.
And I'm even
How many-
thinking, yeah, sorry, yeah, please ask.
I was just going to ask a follow-up question. How many bottlings have you done to date?
126. Sometimes it's only 20 bottles, but mostly it will be 250 or so. But sometimes it's very, very small output, or maybe one damjan of cognac, which is only 42 bottles, but mostly a whole cask, which is around 250 bottles.
Yeah, it goes quick. I have a question from Ian here, who's have you ever or planned to do a Glennugie? Apologies if I'm mispronouncing it. My hometown distilleries have
Yeah,
always
Glennugie. Glennugie.
what?
I understand. It's clear. Glennugie. Well, not. Oh, I've. It's very hard to get your hands on samples. A lot of the business is done by buying casks blind. It's very, very tough. So it's a lot of money, and sometimes you have to buy a cask for 10,000s of pounds without even having tasted it. So it's not that I can just ask different people, oh, send me some Glenuggy, send me some of this, send me some of that. It's much, much more complicated than that. So yeah, sometimes I've had the opportunity to buy a Glenuggy cask, but I would be more confident to buy, for example, blind a Ben Nevis cask or a Colilla cask that I know that the chance is much bigger that I would like it than maybe a Glenuggy cask. But probably there will be great casks that I would like. But it's the fact is, yeah, the reason is that it's not so easy to get your hands on samples. So but I have nothing against Glenuggy, and maybe one day it will show up, but no plans yet.
And a follow-up question to what you just mentioned, Mark says, it's wild to me that you buy casks blind. How have you managed to maintain such a high level of quality?
Well, the cask, I never, ever bottle something that I don't love. That's our main important strategy. And it's even about personal taste. I would never ever bottle a wine cask or a port cask because I simply don't like it. It's not my style. I only bottle what I like myself. Sorry, I forgot your question.
But how have we managed to maintain such high levels of quality buying casks blindly?
Yeah, because also the casks that I buy blind and I don't like, I sell them. I simply sell them on as bulk. I don't keep them. I will not keep them. I don't
And do
bottle them.
you, if you buy something and you maybe it needs an extra 6 months or 12 months, do you keep it for next year's sort of outturn? Like,
Sure. I have a lot. Almost everything I earn, I invest into casks. I buy casks all the time. I buy more casks than bottles, if I compare to the past. So sure, we do that. But a too young cask is not a bad cask. That's a big difference. A too young cask, you can. It's also nice to follow the development. We love sampling our own casks, although it's very expensive to get some samples from Scotland, even from your own casks. But it's nice to follow them during the years. And sometimes okay, now it's good to bottle. It's not gonna get any better. Yeah.
yeah, makes sense. So we talked about the Ben Nevis. We know you're a big fan of Lafroig as well. You've done a few bottlings of them, whether it's Secret Isla or Williamson. Are there any other distilleries that you always say yes to just because you're a big fan?
There are. I even have distilleries on my bucket list. I'm already looking for a good Port Charlotte cask for already 5-6 years. I can't seem to find one that is not ridiculously expensive, and I especially want a Port Charlotte. I think the Lockindale is maybe too much peaty. It's too peated, and then the Bruichledig unpeated is it's also maybe not the best in my opinion, but it's good, of course. But for me, Port Charlotte is just a good amount of peat, and it also has a lovely farmy side. But when I get one offered, it's just ridiculously expensive. But distilleries you say yes to. Yeah, it all depends on the price. I would love to buy and bottle every Balmore that's offered to me, or every Ardbeg that's offered to me, but the prices are ridiculous, absolutely ridiculous in 99.9% of the. It's such a greedy business. It's really tough to find the good casks that is fairly priced. That's the toughest part of this business. It's so hard to do.
And Jeff mentioned earlier on in our tasting that the market for casks is changing as the whiskey industry is going through some ebbs and flows. I imagine that a price is starting to stabilize a bit.
Yeah, it's getting better. It's getting better. Yeah, of course, they don't want to drop too fast, but you see some changements or a bit more coming into the market. Yeah, so I think it will be, yeah, they need their cash flow. So at the end of the day, if you all say, no, your expensive prices, you can keep your casks. So at the end of the day, they will need to drop, of course, but because it starts in the shops, and even before it starts with all of you, whiskey that's too expensive, you stop buying it. We all have a good amount of bottles, so we have our stash. We don't need to buy extra bottles. So we can say to the no, you keep your too expensive bottles, and then the shops, they will come to us. Hey, I don't want your too expensive bottlings anymore. And then we have to go to the people who own the casks. No, we don't want your too expensive casks anymore. So but they're at the end of the circle. So they're always a bit late, and they're only starting now to drop a little bit their prices, but it will continue. So I think there's a good period coming for us, the passionate whiskey lovers. It will become better.
I saw someone mention the Milton Duff that we recently bottled. That was our first Milton Duff 98. And to us, like, it was, it's a really old school kind of Speyside profile, and we really loved it. And from that perspective, like, we even notice now that is certainly in some shops, that there's still bottles sitting on the shelf of that, which is, lucky enough for us, a rarity. But you see, like, we think, okay, like a 27-year-old Milton Dove fruity Speyside at 230 euros should be like a very good deal. And still, like, the market is it's changing a lot. So we are constantly touching and feeling of, like, okay, what do people want? What do they need? What do we think is right? And I think that, that has, been very good for the business, or for our business in general, as well.
Another whiskey that I also like and also love to say yes to, and I can also reveal that I bought another cask after some years that they didn't came into the market. It's Tobermory Lechake, not the unpeated Tobermory, but the Lechake or Lechake, or how we like to pronounce it. But it's also for me a very nice alternative to the peated Islay malt. I think it's a very particular style Lechake. I love it a lot, and I will be finally bring a new one. It's also
As
good.
Aussies mispronounce it often as a Ledaig.
Ledek, yeah, that's really wrong. Yeah, you can say Lechik or Lechake. It's like the Scottish people pronounce it in their own different ways, but it's not Ledek. That's correct. That's true.
I was going to follow up with a question, and Jeff hinted on it. Any clues or hints of what's coming next from you guys?
Well, yeah, I think maybe Jeff mentioned about our 6th anniversary releases, and yeah, there will be a stunning Nevis involved in 1996. Yeah, and yeah, so yeah, I'm looking forward to that, and also interesting because maybe you don't know it, but this year Nevis is celebrating its 200th year of existence. So we made even a back label to congratulate them with their 200 years of distilling their lovely malt. So, yeah, it's a bit of a special one. It's 6 years the Whisky Jury and 200 years Nevis. And there will also be, I'm not sure if you're also rum lovers amongst you, but there will be also a spectacular, very rare rum cask from the 90s. I will not reveal it yet. I want to keep it still as a secret, but it's pretty rare. There are only ever 4 casks that I know of, and I bottled one. Another one has been in my hands, and another one is bottled by, I think, the Thompson brothers, and this is the 4th casks that I know of that exists. So that's pretty rare. That will be the second part of our 6th anniversary bottling, and then there will be something else younger. But yeah, I don't want to reveal it all, so it has to be a little bit a surprise as well.
And like
Yeah.
4 casks, if you compare to whiskey, is just an insane number to have available on the market. Like even Ben Nevis, it's very hard to get, and every cask is a contest, but like 4 casks is just nothing. It is very crazy. So we're very happy that that is coming as well, and it is very good.
Yeah, cool. Is there any other final questions from the chat? I just wanted to from our side extend a warm invite. So if you guys are ever keen on visiting Australia, we'd love to have you guys here. As you see, we're very keen on your whiskies. We have many whiskey
Thank you.
festivals and tastings. So we'd love to have you here one day, maybe to launch an Australian exclusive or something like that. I know it's a bit of a travel, but we find a lot of our guests from Europe will do a stopover in Singapore or Japan on the way over here. So, you know, tick a few boxes and clients on the
Yeah,
way, but we'd
good
love to have you
idea.
here.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Thank you very much.
All right. Well, I think that's it in terms of questions.
Also, thank you so much for the kind comments. I mean, I've been reading through them, and I love your enthusiasm, and you've been very, very friendly towards us and what we do. I really appreciate
Belgians will tell it like it is. That's funny.
we don't
we don't beat around the bush.
not
What's
yeah, that's the expression probably.
So no, big thank you from us and everyone here on the tasting and to Joeri and Jef for your time tonight, and we'll have you back for another virtual tasting very soon.
Thank to you.
Looking forward to it. Thank you so much, guys.
Have a good evening, you all. Thanks.
Have a good
See
evening,
you.
everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.